basically just choose which data you want to like put in the measure, or you want to measure, and then it's pretty simple once you get the hang of it. So SAP Data Services. So Data Services is part of the SAP ecosystem. SAP is a German technology company, but it's used widely in the business world. So Data Services is an ETL tool which gives enterprises a level solution for data integration, transformation, quality, profiling and processing from a source and a target database or data warehouse. So ETL stands for extract, transformation, and load. So it's highly flexible with web-based service application. It allows scripting technology with rich sets of functions. So the components of data services are the designer, web applications, engine, repository, local and center, access server, and administrator. So here's like what, so this diagram I showed here, it's the picture of this, the central repository. So like these are like how the different kind of components kind of like communicate with each other when in terms of like data processing and where the data goes. So does anyone have any questions at this point or no?
Is there like a SAP? Could you give like a brief explanation?
Unfortunately, I don't know what SAP is short for. It's probably some German word, but they're based in Germany. But they have an office in Silicon Valley here. So, what about Tableau? Does anyone have any hold on, whoops. But like, does anyone have any questions regarding like Tableau? Like, if I wanted to kind of go back to Tableau.
Well, you mentioned some projects you do when you were like not using it for work. But what do you? Could you show us a real life example of a project you created as a developer?
I do have a project. Unfortunately, I don't have it with me right now because it's on my work computer, and I don't have my work computer here. Like, this is my recreational computer. I use this like for like fun activities, or like I also used this when I was in Tech Academy. So I wish I could show you the projects, but I can't. I'm not really sure how to like. But if I want to like show a Tableau project, I'd have to like have access to like a Tableau server and then get Tableau Reader and then transform it, and so that's a little bit too much work. And just for like security reasons, I don't want to really bring my work laptop. So sorry.
I wasn't suggesting showing us, maybe just describing to us.
But basically, it looks kind of like just like a map with like color-coded map, and so when you move over like the states or regions, it like shows like data from each state or each region. So it's pretty cool, like the interface. Did you have a question?
Yeah. So like in your work, do you map like states, or like what data sets do you work with, and what data do you have to display?
So the states, so the geography ones are just like the ones I simply do for fun, just to kind of show how much I like to work with Tableau. But the actual data is like comes from like sales and marketing data.
Okay.
So we have to like look for like any we have to like be on the lookout for like any like outliers and bad data. That's how we can like detect anything.
Nice.
So what about SAP? So, sorry.
I have one more question about Tableau.
Yeah.
Do you have to buy a license for individual use?
I think you do have to buy it. That's like the con I explained about Tableau. It's kind of expensive.
Okay.
Or it's pretty expensive.
Cool. That was all I had.
It's definitely fun software, but like I said, I covered it with data services, and so I don't have a design flow, unfortunately, but my favorite part about SAP Data Services is the design flows. So like you have like query tables, then you have like query mappings, and so like the mappings like take the data from the table, do other operations with like functions that are stored in like data services. So it just takes all that data and then like makes a new table. So that's pretty awesome. And there are also different types of queries like mapping queries, table comparisons. So,
I don't know if you went over this earlier, but are you able to compare this with Power BI, Tableau and Power BI? Do you know if your corporation has evaluated both or why they chose Tableau?
I haven't used Power BI yet,
Okay.
but it's not. Otherwise, I would have definitely covered it in this slide. But I don't have a whole lot of experience with Power BI, but it's definitely like almost like Tableau.
Yeah.
I believe Microsoft owns it.
Power BI,
Like that's like Microsoft's like kind of like version of Tableau.
yeah.
But I've never used Power BI. But I hope to one day. So Oracle SQL Developer. So the Oracle SQL Developer is the DBMS or database management system. As you'll know about this like in this when you like are in the data science bootcamp or like in the SQL unit. So it's from Oracle and is an Oracle database integrated drive electronics or IDE. It's used mostly by businesses and enterprises. The pros of Oracle SQL Developer, it's organized and flexible. It's a very good skill to have. Like same with Tableau. It's a good skill to have. Knowing how to use it, telling them like you worked with it. And the cons, same as Tableau, it's expensive. Not a good idea to use for individual use. Like I said, it costs like a couple $100 to get the Oracle SQL Developer, whereas like the Microsoft SQL Developer that I used when I was here, that was free. So that was a good tool to use. That was also like I found that to be a very good tool. And honestly, I'm really happy I learned SQL because I'm learning that in my job. Like that's like basically if you want to go into like an entry-level data science job, like having some knowledge in SQL, like you don't even have to like have expertise in SQL, but like knowing some SQL, like that's like a very good. It's a very good language to learn. Because like SQL is like the only programming that I'm doing. Okay, so I'm gonna change gears a little bit right here. So kind of like now we're gonna talk about Hadoop and Apache. So Apache, it's like similar to SAP Technologies. It has its own ecosystem, and so Hadoop is like the main focus of Apache, and it's like it's a huge concept in data engineering. So I'm switching from data science to data engineering right here. So Hadoop is an open source framework used for distributed storage and processing for very large sets of data across clusters and computers. So it's part of the Apache ecosystem and is written using the Java language. So there are 3 layers in the Hadoop framework: HDFS, or Hadoop Distributed File System, MapReduce, which is short for MapReduce, and Yarn. So HDFS, it's a distributed file system running on commodity hardware. MapReduce reduces the mapping for data distribution to improve the speed and performance. Yarn kind of has a little bit of a funny name. It's called Yet Another Response Negotiator, and it works as a job scheduler for Hadoop. So I hope it wasn't a little bit confusing that I kind of switched gears a little bit here. But does anyone have any questions regarding this or Oracle SQL Developer? Because Hadoop is, like, when you're going to data engineering, like, Hadoop, like, knowing the concepts of Hadoop is a good source to have. And data engineers, like, they get the data for the data scientists to work on. And so, that's what I'm saying, like, you should, if you're interested in, like, data engineering, like, kind of, like, getting interested in Hadoop and Apache is a good thing. And the best part about Apache framework is that it's free to use. The download is free. Only thing is like you'll need some space on your computer to download Linux Ubuntu, and then from Linux Ubuntu, then you can just like kind of like go off of there and learn about like the Hadoop and Apache or Apache ecosystem and the Hadoop framework.
Do these frameworks organize the data for you?
They do they also organize the data, but their main function is to process and transport very large sets of data, whether it's structured or unstructured. So, like that's in data science, in entry level data science, like they always talk about like structured and unstructured data. So like in most cases, like structured data like is data that's like sorted in a data structure, whereas unstructured data is just simply raw data that's like not organized. And in often this case, that like the data engineers like we deal with unstructured data. So the Apache ecosystem components. So we have Kafka, which is used for streaming or real-time data processing. And so in part of like the Kafka framework, there is a producer which inputs data into a cluster. A cluster is the computer or device that does the processing, and a consumer that outputs the data from the cluster. So in most cases, there's batch processing, which takes like each like section of like large sets of data and then just like puts them in. Whereas streaming data, like as soon as like the data gets processed, it just outputs the data. So has anyone ever heard of like real-time data? Or like a real-time, like if you look at like the stock market, or like there's like a lot of good examples to use, like stock market, flight data, or data from like the flights, the weather. It's a good skill to have. There's HBase, which is the relational DBMS in Apache's ecosystem. So it is kind of like something similar to like Oracle SQL Developer or Microsoft SQL Developer. So HBase is short for Hadoop base, or actually no, Hive base. Then there's Spark. It's like basically like the programming concept. It uses the languages of Python, Scala, Java, SQL, and R to program clusters. So like you kind of like just program like you're basically like telling like how to like kind of like move data or what to do. So it does a neat thing of like combining like SQL with like Python and Java. So I would not really recommend using Scala just because it's a tough language. It's a really tough language to learn compared to like Python or Java. In Scala, like if you like want to like write a hello world program, it literally involves like 10 times as much code as a Python or a Java program.
Do you use Scala a lot in your job, or?
No, we don't use Scala in my job. So Cassandra. So Cassandra is also a part of the Apache system. It's a distributed database that uses linear scalability to handle very high performance tasks. So basically, it makes the job run very fast. And then there's like the Zookeeper, which offers a hierarchical key value store used to provide a distributed configuration device, synchronization service, and naming registry for large distributed systems. So I have a little bit of a tough time like understanding exactly what the Zookeeper does, but it's just a concept I wanted to share. But I've never like really had to like understand like what the Zookeeper does, but it's just a concept or a major concept of the Apache ecosystem. Okay, so now I'm done talking about the types of technologies I work with. So now I'm just going to go on to suggestions and advice. So number one, have good connections. Making friends at work is a huge advantage. That's how like I'm able to like kind of get around Atlanta, and I was able to easily find a new apartment and be able to settle in pretty well. Number two, use LinkedIn and GitHub to your advantage. I presented my GitHub code in my interview for my employers. Number three, leave a good impression. Take your job seriously and respect this fantastic opportunity. Be punctual, show up at your job early. Unfortunately, in many circumstances, if you have to drive lots of distances, like sometimes like the commute might not be easy. But in my old apartment, I used to literally live 2 miles away from my work, but unfortunately it's Atlanta, not Portland, and the walkability is not good. So I'd still have to take my car, even though it's like literally like a 2-mile walk or a 4-mile or a 5-minute drive. So yeah, be punctual. Show up to your job early. You want to leave a good impression to your employers, like that you care about this job. Number 4, take advantage of any skills you learned in the job. They would certainly come useful in finding your next job. Number 5, continue to work on programs and projects during your downtime. Have something relatable to do, like especially I hear a lot of Tech Academy or the staff here, or the instructors saying like update your GitHub regularly. I personally kind of fail to do that, unfortunately, and I'm hoping to kind of get back to GitHub, and start making more contributions. But as long as you like have something, like are making contributions and are active on GitHub, that should really count. So for instance, one project I'm very interested in learning is like, if anyone's heard of, has anyone here ever heard of Raspberry Pi? So it looks just like a computer chip, but it's basically like a miniature computer, which is kind of cool. So I've always like wanted to like learn to do use the Raspberry Pi and do cool features. Like for instance, like on a Raspberry Pi, there is, or for instance, on a Raspberry Pi, like you can make a thing called a magic mirror. So, and it's basically like you take a mirror, attach it to like an empty computer screen that is like no longer used, or a computer monitor, and so the Pi, it connects to the computer monitor, and then it outputs like data from the computer monitor, and it shows it onto the screen, or it shows onto the screen of the mirror. So that's where like the term magic mirror comes, because it looks like there are like all these like data sets or data cartoons, like telling like the time, the weather, and your requirements. It's like almost like building like a smartphone screen onto a mirror. So that's pretty cool. So I've always like been interested in doing that. So that's definitely an example of like working on like a program or project in my downtime. Number 6. In many cases, the skills you learn in college may not apply to the real world. Although I was asked to present my code in the interview, I'm not doing any front-end or back-end programming at my job. For instance, I was asked to show my code in Java and Python in my work, but I'm only working with SQL. Like, the only programming I'm doing is SQL in my job. So that's like the only thing I'm doing. But still, absolutely like master programming languages. In fact, the only major programming language I don't really know right now is Ruby. And that's a programming language I've always wanted to learn, but I sometimes like don't have much motivation to do so. Number 7, applying for dozens of jobs is perfectly normal before you get a successful interview. So yeah, I had a lot of bad luck in terms of like finding a job. But all of a sudden, like I got an interview for my current job, and so I did the interview. I thought the interview went well, but I was still kind of nervous because even on some interviews where I think it goes well, I don't ever hear a response back. But then all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, we have some good news. You're accepting the job." And I'm like, "Yay!" And honestly, it was a pretty tough interview because it was 2 rounds, both for 2-hour interviews. So actually, the first interview was 3 hours. The second interview was 1.5 hours. So that was like a little bit. I shouldn't say tough, but it was a little bit like kind of tedious. So challenges and hurdles. So I had lots of trouble with social skills, and that can be like a huge drawback in terms of like finding a job. It doesn't matter how smart you are, like especially in this world. Like many of my friends who were like liberal arts majors had a significantly easier time finding a job than like many of my friends who were engineering majors, because like they had the social skills. They were able to sell themselves a lot more. So it was hard to make friends and establish good connections, especially that's also when I was like growing up in Portland, like that was like a huge trouble I had. Although I was studious and outgoing, I still had a difficult time establishing good connections with peers. Like it doesn't matter. Like it's kind of sad but true. Like even if you're like the top of your class, like if you don't have good social skills, like it's hard to make friends, or it can be difficult making friends. Even though there's also definitely some respect if you're like the top of your class. But number 4, although most people have the skills required for the job, many lack the social skills to ace the interview. So that's like one thing I really wanted to point out. But yeah. So any questions? Yes?
When you were looking for a job, was it a lot of like looking all around the country or the world?
Not really. Not really. The only thing is like the job I currently have, like how I got the job in Atlanta was like my dad was able to reach out to like one of his friends who was like a manager there, and so like he was able to like kind of send me like a job response or a job opening, because like the company I work with, like they actually have like quite a few job openings right now, so I was able to like kind of interview for the job, and I was able to get it. Otherwise, I probably would not interview anywhere outside of like Portland or Seattle.
How did you learn the social skills to be able to ace the interviews?
I personally took like some classes. So, for instance, in the case like for instance, like one of the interview questions, like why should we hire you or why should I hire you? Like you don't want to say like you're hardworking, you're punctual. Like you don't want to, because like anyone can say that. You want to give like an example of like what you did and how you went above and beyond the required, or you went above and beyond the expectations, and how you like went to reached your limits. So that's like one thing I did. So any other questions?
When you were talking about the Tableau reader, is there like a lot of data that you have access to?
Sort of. You can look at Tableau products, but you cannot. Well, unless you have like an individual or enterprise license, you cannot like change any of the data. And even then, like there's like a specific list of people who can kind of like alter the data. So people who have like individual or enterprise licenses, they can create projects in Tableau. Whereas like anyone can get a Tableau reader, but they will be unable to like make any. All they'll be able to do is just like view the data.
Right, but when someone makes a project, do they like specify if it's private or like?
Yeah, they can do it. They can on a Tableau server, like they can decide who has access to it.
Okay. Is there a lot of? Is it worth like going on there? Is there a lot of interesting data that you found? Or like, is there anything in particular?
I like on the Tableau server.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some interesting information. So with Tableau server, like you can just like play around with any of the data.
But was there
I
like?
mean, you can like check out the data. You cannot like edit the data, of course.
Was there any particular set of data that you found interesting?
I would say not interesting, but I was able to like catch like a few outliers that were like through bad data. For instance, like if we're like for example, like suppose like the interest rate of something was like 0.8%, but like they left out the decimal and they said like an 8%. It's like we're able to like catch the outlier and see like what the bad data is. Like from that Tableau. Like we're able to like see, like look at the visualizations, look out for any outliers or spikes in the data, and from the spikes like we can see like any outliers and see like kind of where there's like bad data. So that way we can just like kind of that's the work I mostly do on Tableau server and Tableau reader.
Is in your role, do you do a lot of like actual data visualization and setting up the visuals?
Yes, that's what I use like Tableau for,
Mhm.
and I also sometimes connect like data services to Tableau.
Do you have any other data visualization projects that you're working on? Like you mentioned the temperature ranges?
That's not work related. The work related one I'm doing like a job log, and so from there from the job log I color code like all the jobs that are either successful, failed, or are still running, and either like when they started or when they've been finished, and so like I color coded like the jobs that failed like in red, the jobs that are running in yellow, and the jobs that completed in green. And so right now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to like get the jobs that are organized by time, so that way we can like know like which are the jobs that like failed like recently, because like any failed jobs that like, because a failed job can like really vary. Like if it's like a failed job because of like some kind of a bug in the system, it can either be like just an easy fix, or it can either be something very serious. So I also like kind of like want to know like which time it failed, and also like how long ago the job ran. That's
How well do you enjoy your job? Or what is your favorite aspects of what you do?
just good connections, being able to be a productive member of society. I like to get experience with Tableau. I have been enjoying Tableau a lot since I first learned about it. So I first came to know about Tableau during my internship at Portland Bureau of Transportation. And so as soon as that was over, I came to Tech Academy. So I knew about Tableau like even like a year ago.
On your resume, you said you know so many languages, but now you use only SQL. Do you want to like look for jobs where you can actually like use those languages?
It's okay. I'm not really too keen. Like now, like the only concern I have is like if I don't program those languages, I might soon forget.
Yes,
like-
because like you learn, but then you forget. So
Yeah.
quick.
So I hope to like continue programming in like especially Python and Java and C#. I found C# to be a fun unit. I was able to breeze through the C# unit, or until I got to the final project. When I took it, it was a car insurance project. I'm not sure what the project now is, but when I was like taking it, was a car insurance project. So like up to like the car insurance project, I was able to like breeze through it. So yeah.
For your personal project where you did the map with the highs and low temperatures, did you get that data from like the Weather Channel? Or?
I got off kind of a Wikipedia, and I was able to like enter it into how I did it was I just like looked at Wikipedia, then like entered in the data through an Excel file, and then used the Excel file table to connect it to Tableau and then just show it out.
Would there have been a way to like not manually have to do like the data set?
I'm not sure how to do that on Tableau itself, but usually it takes the data from a source, whether it's so on SAP Data Services, the tables get stored into the Oracle SQL database. So it takes the data from the Oracle SQL database and then puts it there. The project I did for fun, like I just put it into a Microsoft Excel table and then just use the Microsoft Excel table. So the thing is, like the data I used like for the projects I did for fun, like they were not in a database, whereas like all the projects in the work, like they are in a database.
So the knowledge you got from the Tech Academy on SQL course was enough to
Yeah, it was good enough. I was also able to kind of like look at some like the Python, even though I wasn't in the Python course, I was able to like look at some of the Python material.
Yeah, I was wondering now that you're out of Tech Academy and
Yeah.
you're in a job, what other like additional learning do you do outside of work, or do you do any at this point?
I've always wanted to kind of like learn learn to program in Ruby, and oftentimes I sometimes have to look at my GitHub. I haven't used my GitHub since June, unfortunately, but that's also why I feel a little bit guilty, because I I want to show that I've been kind of working. Because I would say the biggest danger once you have a job is lethargy. You don't feel like learning anything, but anything can happen. And so like if you have to find a new job, like you need to show like you need to like have some like additional skills you did. Like,
show you have
like I can't show any of my work on GitHub too because like that's all like company data.
right.
But that's like the biggest like right now I would say that's the biggest danger. Like once you have a job, like it's just like all lethargy because like it's easy to like not do anything and then just let all the knowledge just slip out of your head. Like you won't know. Like now I kind of have to like still like if I have to write a Python program, I'll have to like look up how to do it. But for me, like it's pretty easy. Like that, but honestly, I feel pretty in terms of like learning a language. Like if I was able to breeze through the C# course, like I was able to like do the entire course in like less than 2 weeks, and probably almost like half the course in like 2 days.
So you could refresh pretty easily.
Yeah.
When you were starting your job search, was there anything you were particularly interested in, or were you open to whatever came along, or did you have a...
I was open to kind of like whatever came along because like most of my friends had jobs and I was just like not really having a job, so like I wanted to like just like show a job that was like, something relatable. Like I didn't want to like choose a job that specifically went above at my category because like the software developer can make anywhere between like $50,000 and $200,000 a year as an annual salary, depending on like what kind of like experience. But the problem is that like the problem with that is like when you search for very specific roles, you'll have a harder time finding a job. For instance, like I came here because I came to Tech Academy because I did not have a good experience with the computer science program at Portland State University, and so I decided to come to here. I decided to switch it to math because I used to be like really like on the top of everything in math back when I was in high school. Now not so much, but anyway, I have a bachelor's in science and mathematics, and I graduated Tech Academy, and I feel pretty good because like I feel like with a math degree, like going to a good tech boot camp like here, it's like kind of like having a complementary CS degree if you like have a degree in something related. Because for instance, like almost the first half of like the computer science program, they had me learn C++, and I'm not doing anything in C++ in my job or in the job internships I've done. So that's the thing. Like C++ is definitely a good language to learn. Like the rigor is definitely very good, but it's like I'm not using C++ anymore. It's like because of that, it's probably my least favorite language in the industry now. Just because like no one's using it, it's a dying language, and it's just too difficult to learn. Especially with like pointers, and that can lead to seg faults. Like Java, it's similar to C++, but you don't have to deal with pointers, and then that won't lead to like any like memory leaks or segmentation faults. Okay, so any more questions? Or hope I didn't go too sidetracked.
No, it was good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone who attended. And thank you everyone who's here. Hope everyone has a wonderful weekend and Happy New Year to all.